What's happening? Today we're going to talk about 3 things to avoid when setting the rules of your sales call. Basically, 3 things during sales conversations when you start one that you should steer clear of every single time. Stay tuned. What's happening, FlowChat Connector? Sean back at you with another high-ticket tune-up. Bam! Hope you're doing well today. Don't forget to smash that like button, share this out to somebody else who needs to get better in sales. And of course, if you find some value throughout this video, please tap that subscribe button. Would be super grateful. There's like 97% of you that are not subscribed to my channel based on the analytics that I looked at. So please be one of those people that actually is cool and hits that button. I appreciate you so much. Today, we're going to talk about 3 sales conversation starters you should steer clear of during a sales conversation. Very simple, very powerful, and I think it'll provide a lot of value in your life. So let's bring out Yoda. There we go. Hey, Yoda, what's going on? All right, check it out. The question I have for you is, do you want to increase your close percentage? Right? If you want to increase your close percentage, there's a couple of things that everybody can do very, very quickly. Now, when I learned this was several years, 15, 17 years ago. It increased my close percentages by 32%. Imagine increasing your sales closes by a third. What would that do for your business? What would that mean to you? Imagine how that would feel if you're just able to increase your close rates by 32%. Most sales professionals, as is, only close 20 to 40%. If you could bump that by 30, gosh, you're going to be winning, right? So what do we mean by this? What are the things we need to talk about? Well, in every aspect of life, there's rules. The first analogy that I can talk about is sports. Every sport has rules, right? And so if that's said, let's talk about a few examples. Baseball. What are the rules of baseball? Well, we know that there's a book of rules, and typically before the game starts, any baseball game starts, what happens is the 2 team captains show up, the 2 coaches walk to home plate, they meet with the umpire around the home plate, and they talk about the rules of the baseball game. All right. Hey, we're going to play ball for the next 3 hours. This is the foul pole over here. That's the foul pole over here. If the ball goes under that fence, this is what happens. If it bounces over, it's a ground rule double. If it goes out over here, it's considered a home run. And of course, watch out for this and that and that. Whatever the rules are, they discuss those before the game begins. They all high five or shake hands and then flip a coin or do whatever they do. And then they go back to their dugouts and they start the baseball game. They have rules. Secondly, let's look at another sport. Well, what about tennis, right? In tennis, they also have rules. You have the judge that sits next to the net and watches the professional athletes as they play. And if something happens, he says, nope, violation of the rule. That ball was out. That's not good. That ball was long. Let's do a video recording, replay, whatever. There's also rules in that sport too. Another example here, soccer, right? You can get a red card. You can get a yellow card for violating the rules and beating up on an opponent, something like that, right? If the ball goes across this line, it's out of bounds. You have to do a throw in. You can't kick it in, et cetera, et cetera. So you get the point, right? So sports have rules, just like football, right? Football has the same rules, and golf is even another example. You can't use a foot wedge and kick it out into the middle of the fairway. You have to, in fact, when I started playing golf at 4 years old, one of the first things I did was when I went into this clinic and they like grilled us on the first like 5 most important rules of golf. So we would learn those, right? And just like sports, sales is a sport, therefore sales has rules. Now, one thing that I will share, and I coined this phrase, if you treat sales like a sport, it will pay you like an athlete. Okay. If you treat sales like a sport, it'll pay you like an athlete. Promise, because it's happened to me. It's happened to a lot of people that I've worked with, right? So what do we do? So what we want to do here is we want to set the rules of the game. And I'm going to get to the things you need to avoid here in just a second, but you got to understand the context of this because this is valuable. Setting the rules of the game, the sales game that you're about to go play, is the most important thing that you can do. I created an easy analogy for you to use. And remember, it's just game, right? So GAME is the analogy. G stands for grateful. A stands for ask. M stands for me. And E stands for end. If we remember, set the rules of the game every time we get into a sales conversation, this is simple. This is what it sounds like. Hey, Chris, super grateful to be here today. I appreciate the time that you're going to be taking to spend with me over the next 45 minutes or so. During the call, I'd like to ask you a few questions about your business, how you got to where you're going, what you're trying to accomplish. And I'm happy to answer any questions about me whether it be about myself, my past history, our company, our products, our services, our tech, whatever it is. And we go down that path. And then at the end of the conversation, usually one of two things happens. We find that there's a very clear path and we want to lock arms and move forward, which is a great opportunity and option. Or we find that the timing's not quite right or there's something missing, right? And so those are kind of the two major outcomes that I'm going for today for the call. What would make it valuable for you today in the next hour? And then they'll say whatever they say. And then you could say, great, perfect, let's add that to the agenda. By the way, you still have about this much time, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever, right? Lock that in. So now the prospect knows exactly what you're going to be talking about. They know exactly what the outcome's going to be, and they know exactly what to expect during the call. If you clear up all of the clouds and smoke webs around this, your prospect will enjoy the conversation more, and it will not feel as salesy as a lot of your calls probably are feeling right now. Okay, so here's the three things that we want to avoid. Number one, mystification, right? We want to always avoid any mystification. And by setting the rules of the sales call, the game that you're going to play, you can avoid all of that mystification. Now, what I mean by that is maybe a prospect will come back to you and say, oh man, like your solution looks so great, Sean. And I think this might be a great possibility for us. And maybe it's going to work. And hopefully we'll be able to get you this purchase order within the next week. Or here's my, I just got to make sure that this is the right card that I can use. But again, everything looks perfect. And I think we're going to move forward. And I'm hoping that this is the right solution. Well, most traditional and amateur sales professional or people will say, oh yeah, I got one. And they'll run back to the office and they'll tell their boss like, hey, look, like I got this one. They're saying these things. And your boss is going to sit there and look at you and be like, what are you crazy? Like that was all mystification words. Those are what we call the wishy-washy words. And we want to get rid of those. And by setting the rules of the game or the rules of the sales call, you can avoid the mystification. Secondly, again, just developing a clear understanding of what happens next is the true answer. Number two, no wishy-washy words, right? There's so many different wishy-washy words. Do not allow words that might allow deals to go in your favor, right? Oh, that sounds good. And if all things line up, I think this is going to be something we move forward with. All those words like that sounds good. Okay, that's cool. But this might be something like might is a wishy-washy word, right? And so what we can do if we're hearing those words, we can say, well, might means... or I don't quite understand what, like, it sounds like this is maybe an option. You're just comparing it. You can always call that stuff out during sales conversations. And if you can avoid any of the wishy-washiness that's coming back from your prospect, you're going to just grow leaps and bounds. And again, if you set good rules of the call or rules of the game when you're doing this, you won't have any of this wishy-washiness whatsoever, right? And then number three is no smoke. If it feels like a vapor trail, it probably is. Call it out. Your gut. Dear friend of mine, Brad Gibb, who runs a multi 8-figure financial company. He said this to me when he's like, it's my gut tuition, right? I think everybody on earth has gut tuition. That means that when your gut calls something out, you know it to be true. You can be sitting in a conversation and all of a sudden you're like, it doesn't feel right. Well, that's your gut tuition telling you that there's probably a big hanger here and we need to talk about it. So if there is some sort of a smoke trail or a vapor trail that your prospect tries to send you on, and your gut's saying, that doesn't sound right, be like, I'm kind of confused. Like, you just said that. What does that mean? Dig down the path. And if you can avoid the smoke, you're going to close more deals. With that said, those are the three things you want to avoid. Very simple. Avoid the mystification, avoid wishy-washy, and avoid the smoke or the vapor trails. And you can do that simply by setting the rules of the call or the sales call or the agenda or the rules of the game, as we call it. And that's it, right? And again, use that analogy game. Grateful, ask them. They can answer questions about me. And then at the end, this is one of two things that's going to happen. And you, I promise, will close more deals. Like I mentioned, this helped me to close 32% more deals than I was closing before I used this tip. Hopefully you can put it into your world today, and hopefully it will help you to crush more deals. With that said, you've just been tuned up. Hopefully this was valuable to you. Make sure and smash that like button. Share this out to somebody who needs to get better in sales. And of course, please smash that subscribe button. With that said, I look forward to seeing you next time. For that is ciao for now. Bye.